This week is Suicide Prevention Week. Two devastating losses to suicide in the Black community marked the beginning of 2022. The deaths of attorney, former Miss USA, activist, and entertainment news correspondent Chelsea Christ, and of up-and-coming DJ and songwriter Ian King Jr., who was also the son of Academy Award-winning actress Regina King. The deaths of Christ and King sent shock waves through the Black community and among fans at large. Both were young. Christ was 30, and King had turned 26 just days before taking his life. Both were successful and appeared to have the world at their fingertips. Sadly, Christ and King are not alone. Their deaths have shed light on an ongoing and alarming issue: increasing rates of suicide among Black Americans. Between 2014 and 2019, rates of suicide among Black people in the United States increased by 30%, according to data published in May 2021 in the Journal of American Medicine. A report published in November 2021 by the CDC showed that although the overall rate of suicide in the United States decreased by 3% in 2020, the rate of suicide actually increased among many men of color, including Black men, during this time. Between 2011 and 2020, the suicide rate among Black men was 3 times that of Black women, the Suicide Prevention Resource Center reports. Equally alarming, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services Office of Minority Health found that suicide was the second leading cause of death among Black people ages 15 to 24 in 2019. And according to a report released in December 2019 by the Congressional Black Caucus's Emergency Task Force on Black Youth Suicide and Mental Health, suicide is also the second leading cause of death for Black youths ages 10 to 19. So what's driving the rise in suicides among Black Americans? Patrice Harris, MD, Everyday Health's chief health and medical editor, and the first Black woman to be elected president of the American Medical Association, discusses 5 factors likely contributing to this increase and what could help to change this trajectory. 1. Social media ramps up pressure to fit in. Social media is undeniably pervasive and has made society incredibly voyeuristic, says Dr. Harris, as it has given people nearly unlimited access to view others' lives online. This can make people feel pressure to conform to an ideal, and pressure associated with social media is one potential cause of increased suicides among Black people, Harris says. 2. Mental health stigma impedes Black people from seeking help. Harris says that stigma surrounding mental health issues and seeking help from mental health professionals has also played a role in rising suicide rates among Black people. A person might think, I'm having these issues, but I'll keep them to myself because if I seek help, I might be seen as crazy or weak, says Harris. There's stigma in the Black community that if you have a mental disorder, it's a sign of a character flaw or weakness instead of what it truly is: a diagnosis that can be treated and managed. 3. Treatment is often less accessible to Black people. Harris says untreated mental illness is another cause of increased suicide rates among Black people. In addition to stigma, there are many reasons that Black people don't get the help they need for mental health issues, including lack of access to care. On top of this, there's a lack of representation among mental health professionals, which makes it difficult for Black people to find culturally competent mental health care or health care that meets a patient's cultural, social, and language-related needs. Only 2% of psychiatrists and 4% of psychologists in the United States are Black, according to the American Psychiatric Association and American Psychological Association. 4. Black people continually face racism and discrimination. The murder of George Floyd in 2020 sparked nationwide protests against racism in the United States, which Black people have faced for centuries. For many Black Americans, Harris says, Floyd's murder was a tipping point for an increased rate of anxiety and depression related to racism. 5. Many Black people are frequently exposed to violence. Although not all Black people live in impoverished or physically dangerous environments caused by social issues such as structural racism, Research suggests that Black people experience disproportionately high rates of exposure to violence compared with white people, according to Mental Health America. Like racism, continued exposure to violence may factor into increasing suicide rates among Black people. Witnessing violence and living in communities with increased numbers of violent crimes is another aspect of trauma that may lead to increasing suicide rates among Black people, says Harris. The bottom line is the increasing number of suicides among Black people is likely multifactorial, and additional research is needed to pinpoint exactly what's driving these rates. The research we do have indicates that harmful effects connected to the use of social media, exposure to racism, mental health stigma, and exposure to violence and accumulative trauma have all likely played a role. According to Harris, key steps to reducing these rates include reframing how mental health issues are viewed and discussed in Black communities, combating potential bias among mental health providers, and addressing mental health stigma among Black people. Harris stresses that combating mental health issues in the Black community needs to be a collective effort among people with mental health issues, their loved ones, and medical professionals, and needs to involve dismantling the racist systems that cause many of these mental health issues in the first place. Please remember, you're not alone. If you're feeling down, depressed, or lonely for an extended period of time, please reach out to family or friends. If you have thoughts that you would be better off dead, please seek help. You can dial 988 if you don't feel you can speak to someone nearby. If you need help in finding resources, you can always call me, Dawn Daly-Mack, RN, at 252-410-1717. And I want you to especially remember that Black health matters.